Every day, you wake up with a choice. Stay the same, or fight. Join me as I dive into the stories of high achievers who have faced obstacles head-on and emerged stronger. We'll explore the principles that guide their lives, the strategies that built their success, and the faith that keeps them grounded. This is the Apex Mindset, where we understand what it takes to win, physically, mentally, and spiritually. And where we don't just talk about the fight, we live it. Hope, grit, endurance. This is where it all comes together. Let's get into it.
Welcome to another episode of the Apex Mindset. This will be the March Couch to Champion update. So February's out of the way and we're on to a new month. So February was an interesting month. The first week was good. You know, I fought procrastination a lot because deep down I really didn't feel like going, but I just had to fight that, and I did successfully fight that. Got in there, got some exercises in, and it was a good starting point to get acclimated back into working out 3 days a week. It was enjoyable, I was definitely sore after doing that, but it was it's what you would expect from your first week back after a while of not doing anything. So, it was fun though. I got in there and got some miles in, and it felt good to be back. The second week was just phenomenal. I mean, I busted 4 milestones that Wednesday. So, my goal that Wednesday was to kind of just hit a distance run. So I wanted to basically reach however many miles I could reach within an hour and a half time period. And just however many I got was however many I got. And I'll touch on that a little bit later on. But that was just a phenomenal week. I mean, I just crushed it. My body was definitely not happy with me afterwards because, it took a lot out of me. But it was a really good week that week. And my strength training exercises that week too were a little bit lighter than what I was lifting that first week. I kind of eased back a little bit and kind of gave my body a chance to kind of reacclimate to the weights that I was lifting, but I didn't overstrain myself. I was still, putting in effort, and I was still sore, but I didn't overdo it. So, and that and just a phenomenal week was just, everything combined just made for a great week that week. But then, the third week, I mean, I didn't go at all. I skipped the entire week. In my defense, it was like 4 degrees outside, and it was really cold. And the cold makes you lazy, and it's hard to get out there and get active when it's freaking freezing. But still, I mean, I could have gone out there and did something at least once. So it wasn't a good week for me that third week. I put a lot of things off, and we'll see. At the time of recording this, I have not done my 5K. Mock 5K yet, so we'll see how well it plays out for that. How well 1 week of amazing training and then another week of no training at all, how well that really gives me an edge. But the main thing that February did was really gave me a solid starting point. So going through a whole week gave me a good idea of some things that I need to work on, some things I need to adjust. Is my schedule working? Is what I'm doing working? It provided me a good bird's eye view of everything that I was doing. And so it was just a good starting point, I would say. It was good to kick things off and get things rolling. One of the main things that I really, really noticed that I need to work on is self-hate. So let's talk about that third week. Apologies. So That was Wednesday, February 5th. And that was a pretty rough day. I made a post. Talking about how absolutely disappointed in myself I was. That day, I had a bad day, and then, the end of the day came to where I needed to go to the gym. Luckily, I forced myself to go. I procrastinated the entire day not going first. And then once I got there, I was out on the track, and I was going to do some speed work, and I could not find the motivation to get up and do something. If you look at that post, you notice that I had probably about 6 runs that I logged, and each of those was just random. Random miles, random paces. There wasn't any structure to it, which for me is very uncommon. So it was just a really, demotivating day. I would have a good run, and then I'd have a crap run right after that, and then I would try to, I would sit down, think about it a little bit, and then try and get back into it and do it again. And I couldn't find the motivation to really push myself that day. It was just so rough. But the main thing that I struggled with that day was not the motivation. It was really the self-hate and the mental game, the mental fighting I had going on. I left that day earlier than I usually would, and I just felt like a complete and total failure. I was beating myself up. I was saying stuff like nobody cares, or I can't really do this, so why try? It's so far out anyway. Who's gonna care, right? If I can't even help myself, then what makes me think I can help anybody else? Nobody wants to really watch me fail. Nobody really wants to watch at all. Things like that. Things that just really brought me even lower than I was. And, it was just not good. Not good things going on up here. Not good at all. It was a lot of feelings of failure, feelings of unworthiness, feelings of I just can't do this, I can't, I'm not good enough. It was rough. It was really rough, and I think that sunk me even lower than if I had just, taken a chip on the shoulder and just moved on. But it's a serious thing to deal with, self-hate. It's very real, and it goes on, and everybody deals with it. So, when I say self-hate, what is self-hate? What is that? Easiest description I can give of it is a mental, physical, or emotional abuse towards yourself. So, punishing yourself, basically, for whatever you feel like you need to be punished for, even though you didn't do anything wrong. Now, that's not to say that everybody deals with an inner critic. Everybody's got something in the back of their mind that tells them, you can't do this, you can't do that, whatever. Everybody fights that. That's human nature. But where it becomes a problem is when that inner critic continues to eat at you and eat at you and eat at you to the point where moving forward, it keeps you from moving forward, and it stops you in your tracks. And at that point, that's when it becomes a real problem. And for me, that's what happened. I got through about 3/4 of the race, and then my inner voice was just saying, give up, just quit. And I did. I listened to it, and I quit. I was like, I'm not logging any miles that are worth anything. Nothing I'm doing here today matters. Let's just get out of here. So I did. I left. And, I didn't feel good about leaving. I didn't feel good about giving up, but I did. And I believe that, the more that you believe in your inner critic, the stronger the grip it has on you. Criticism really is the killer of will. So if you can't control that inner critic enough to where it doesn't control you, then it will control you, and it will stop you from doing things and missing out on, and it will force you to miss out on opportunities because of fear, because of your own feelings of unworthiness and things like that. And if you don't take care of that, if you don't get a grip on that, then you're going to miss a lot of things in your life that are magical and memorable, and really it won't help you any when you're trying to build discipline or build will. The more and more that you let it walk all over you, so to speak, it will tamper that, and it will flatten that out to the point where you just don't have the strength to say no anymore. And it's a very real thing, and I've been there. I was there that Wednesday, and it's not somewhere you want to stay. So on a lighter note, how do we fight back against this inner critic that I'm talking about? How do we begin the process of taking back control? First and foremost, you need to understand your worth in Christ. That is the foundation. He's going to love you no matter what you bring to the table. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have everything together. You don't have to do anything except show up. And he's always going to love you, no matter who you are or what mistakes you've made or what failures you have. He will always love you. And when you begin to really, beyond just understand that, but adopt that and embrace that identity, you realize that perfection is unachievable. There is no way on earth that you can be perfect. You can't. You will never be perfect. It is humanly impossible. And your worth is measured in the fact that God loves you despite that. Despite that. He doesn't want you to be perfect. He knows you're going to mess up. He knows you're going to fail. And it's okay, because we all do it. But he's going to care about you no matter what. That's the foundation, I believe, of really dealing with that inner critic. And it's a process. It's a process. You have to get to that point where you really understand that and you realize that and you adopt that. And I'm still working on it myself. I have a lot of moments where I just don't feel worthy, but I am worthy because, Christ loves me. And that's all I really need in this life. And secondly, I think another good thing to do is practice positive self-talk. For every minute that you beat yourself up, spend 2 minutes lifting yourself back up. You need to become your own biggest cheerleader. So, cheer yourself on. Give yourself the confidence and encourage yourself that you can do this. It is possible. You got to believe in yourself, especially if there's nobody else around to believe in you. You've got to have that strength to say that, despite the fact that I failed, it's okay. And you've got this. You can. And you will. And something to help with that is to surround yourself with people that will build you up, even if you don't like it. A real friend is somebody who's going to tell you, hey, here's something I noticed that you need to work on. Hey, I noticed that every single time that you fail a run, you just sit there and I notice that you really just tear yourself apart. You don't need to do that. You need people around you that are going to tell you when you're wrong and help you really move forward and build you up and believe in you and help you grow. Surround yourself with people that will do that. And I guarantee if you do that, the positive self-talk and the understanding your worth in Christ and things like that are going to get a lot easier because you have a support group. Sometimes things are better done together than alone. And you don't have to be alone. You don't have to fight this fight alone. Even if it's just Christ that you surround yourself with, Even if it's just God in your life, that's enough. He's always going to be your biggest cheerleader. He's always going to believe in you, and he's always going to lift you up. So you can do this. You do have this. And I'm telling myself this. I'm preaching to the choir. I'm just as much guilty of it as anybody else. But part of the success, I believe, of the second week when I hit those 6 miles was, I began to change that thought process a lot. Another thing I believe that really, really helps. There's a book by Ryan Hall called Run the Mile You're In. And it's his biography talking about, his journey as a runner, as an endurance athlete. And that's the book that really got me inspired to run. After reading that, I was like, running seems like this awesome thing that's just going to, whip you into shape mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever. It's really going to push your limits, but it's when you're out there on the track, when you're hitting those miles, there's no greater feeling. Part of that too is really understanding the core of why are you doing this. And if you don't know why you're doing something, just keep asking yourself why. For example, I'm out there on the track. Why am I running? Because I'm training for a 5K. Well, why am I training for a 5K? Because I want to build discipline. Well, why do I want to build discipline? Because deep down, I know that I struggle with that. Well, why do I struggle with that? Just keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper and get honest with yourself. Really dig down and find the core, the root of what it is that motivates you to get out there and do something. Why are you pushing? Why are you doing this? Referencing back to that book again, Run the Mile You're In, he talks about he was doing a race and he started to start really feeling the pain in his legs and feel the pain in his mind. And it was just, he was starting to kind of trail down, he was starting to wean out. And he said he remembered in the back of his mind, he was running the race for a reason. He was running this race for charity, and he wasn't running for himself. He was running for them. And after realizing that, after that moment of reflection, he got a second wind, and it really carried him through that race. And I believe he ended up winning that race as well. So your purpose, your reason for doing something, that is a life raft that is going to carry you through anything that life throws your way. You have to know what your purpose is. You have to know what your vision is. You have to know your why. Another good book to read to really understand this concept is Simon Sinek's Find Your Why. Highly encourage that you read that and really understand what purpose actually is. I believe that purpose carries passion, and passion silences pain. There's nothing better than understanding your purpose and to go with purpose. If I go into this race that I'm doing right now, if I go into this race understanding that the only reason that I'm really doing this is because honestly I want to, then winning doesn't matter. The journey sometimes is more valuable than the end result. What I'm going to learn along the way, to me, is worth a whole lot more than winning that race. Winning would be great, but why I'm doing it is more about the journey. And that journey is what I'm sharing with you guys. So moving on from, come the self-talk. Let's talk a little bit about some new metrics, some new observations that I've had this month. So right out of the gate, figures, I strained my sternum. So if you don't know what that is, that's kind of like right here in the chest. I strained it. I didn't sprain, I didn't break, I strained it. I pulled something a little too hard. I think probably from breathing too hard, or when I was doing some chest exercises, I think I may have overdone the weight and, probably pulled something there. What that means is if I do anything that's high intensity, like a heavy chest workout, or if I'm breathing really, really hard, it really starts to act up and it hurts pretty bad. So doing that kind of forced me to really slow down and go easy on myself, which is not what I wanted to do right out of the gate. I really wanted to, bust in there, put in some miles, really go as fast as I can and go faster. I wanted to just push, but it was a good moment of reflection that slowing down is actually really good for you. Learn to slow down, because when you slow down, it helps you really dial in and focus on the details. Would I be where I am today? Would I have busted those 4 miles in the second week if I had not slowed down? If I was running as hard as I can, I probably would have hurt myself even more. And I guess technically I did hurt myself, spraining my sternum. Or rather straining my sternum. So, it's a good lesson to learn. Not in a way that I wanted to learn it, of course, but, it's important to realize that you're not invincible, and, you can hurt yourself. You really seriously can hurt yourself, especially if that's why in the first Couch Champion episode I did mention, that you really need to do your research. Well, that's also why I believe it's important that you do that, because if you run in there gung-ho like I did, you're going to hurt yourself. So talking about the milestones that I did actually achieve. So a little bit on that day. So that was Wednesday, February 12th. So what did I change that between the first week and that second week? The biggest thing was my footwear. I was running originally in the Adidas Ultra Boosts, which are really neutral. They're really flat. They've got a good amount of cushion on the back heel, and they're really breathable, but they are just as neutral flat as you're going to get. Those were not working for me at all. They were just hurting my arches. They were hurting my heels. They were hurting my shins. They were giving me really, really bad shin splints that first week. And honestly, the first 2 days of the second week before that Wednesday bust. So I went ahead and swapped them out for my other pair of shoes, which are my Hoka Clifton 9s, which are a stabilizer shoe. They've got a little stiffer cushion, and they've got, what we would call guardrails that are kind of there to keep your foot in place. And then they do have a little bit higher arch to kind of keep my foot from doing this or this. It kind of supports that. So that was one of the probably best things I did that day, was swapping those out, because sometimes, if it's too soft, it can create a bigger problem. If your cushion is too soft, it can create a bigger problem for your feet. So footwear is a very, very, very important thing to keep in mind when running. And everybody's different. Everybody's feet are different. So you really just got to do the research. I would suggest go to a foot or a shoe store that specializes in actually selling, some high quality shoes. Here where I'm at, I went to Foot Tech, which is a really good place to go, and had a guy look at me walk and watch what I'm doing, and then gave me about 3 or 4 suggestions, and then I tried every single one of those out, and I really walked around good. I bounced on them a little bit to see what I would do, and the Hokas were the ones that I settled on. I felt like they were, had the most room, they were comfortable, for me, those are the best. And I really should have been using them from the beginning, but, you live and you learn. So that was the first thing. The second thing was the entire hour and a half that I was running on that treadmill, I was solely focused on my form. I said, you know what? I've been hurting myself. I've been running with improper form the past week and a half. I really need to dial this in. So I spent all of that time just thinking about what my form was like. So first thing I really thought about was, I wanted to feel the burn on the back of my legs, not the front. So I don't want to feel it on my shins. I didn't want to feel it in my quads. I wanted to feel it in my glutes. I wanted to feel it in my hamstrings, my calves, all of that. I wanted to feel it there. So one of the things that helped with that was I kept repeating in my head, pull the ground with your feet. Don't reach. Pull, don't reach. When I started doing that, it's almost as if I immediately started feeling the back of my legs take on the shock and take on the weight of the run. And that made my shins crystal clear. They didn't hurt one single bit when I did that. That was number one. Second thing I did was center of balance. So I had to make sure that my shoulders and head and neck and everything were in line with where my feet were actually hitting the ground. So I had to do a little bit of a forward lean. That part kind of came naturally once I started correcting how I was actually running with my legs. But something to keep in mind, you want to keep your center of balance dialed in and actually centered, because if your center of balance is off, you're going to get off balance, and then you're going to use your muscles to try and correct that balance and stabilize, but you're going to get sore trying to do that continuously, because you're going to continuously get out of balance. So it's definitely something to really consider, and that's something that I also corrected there. And then also, I really aimed for more of a midfoot contact rather than a heel contact, because I guess was really heavy on my heels and my mostly my heels. So I aimed for staying light on my feet, staying bouncy, and aiming for just kind of focusing on hitting the middles of my foot, not the heel or anywhere else. And that really helped too. But the greatest lesson that I learned was I am a musician. I play bass, and I've played music for a long time. And what I decided to do was use music to dial in my cadence. So your cadence is basically steps per minute. Well, what I discovered was that also equals out to beats per minute. So 1 step per minute equals 1 beat per minute. So I created a playlist on my Apple Music that had music in there with the BPMs, the beats per minute, set at my desired cadence. So for example, I have a whole playlist with songs, about 10, 15 songs that equal out to maybe 2 hours worth of running, which is probably the most I'll be doing in one session. All set on 180 beats per minute. So 180 beats per minute is the cadence that I want to reach. I want to reach 180 steps per minute. So kept that in my ears the whole run, and I listened to that, and I tried to stay on beat, my feet hitting the ground on beat every single time. And I can tell you right now that cured my cadence problem. And that pretty much eliminated my shin splints completely and balanced me out. And it solved pretty much every problem I had. And it was amazing. And it also forced me to shorten my stride a little bit so that my feet stayed more centered. So my center of balance was better. So, if you're a musician, get you a metronome and put it in your ear and follow that beat. That solved so many problems. Probably one of the best discoveries I had, and I'm going to be doing that every single time, probably even on my race. I will have a race day playlist in my ears, focused on keeping that beats per minute steady. So how did I figure all this out? I'm talking about steps per minute, cadence, form, stride length, all these things. What did I use? I will tell you right now that if you're not using AI, then you're not doing it right. AI is probably one of the best man-made search engines out there better than Google that I've ever used. And by that I'm referencing ChatGPT. What I did was, and I'm a firm believer in ChatGPT, so hate me later, but I went in ChatGPT and I basically laid it out. I said, okay, here are my stats. I sent it all of my Garmin stats, everything from every run I've done up to that point. I sent it every single run I've done, the stats, which had Cadence, which is also, again, I'll make a side note, which is again why it's important that I had a Garmin. Like I said, I was going to use it as my second brain. It's tracking all these things for me. I don't have to worry about it. So now I put all those stats into ChatGPT and I said, okay, take these stats. I also sent it way back in the day. I had done a 3D foot scan on one of those little 3D foot scan machines, which almost any shoe store that's a serious shoe store is going to have one. So I highly suggest you do that. What I have is this little app called My Feet Scan by, I think it's A-Trax or something like that. And it's got a 3D scan of my foot, and then it's also got pressure. It's got a pressure analysis on where I'm pushing hard on my feet specifically and where I'm not, which also proved why, how I have such flat feet. So I sent ChatGPT that as well as my Garmin stats. And then I also had a video of me actually running out on the track. And I sent it that as well. And I said, okay, here's the problems I'm having. I'm having shin splints. I'm fatigued faster. I just run out of energy quick. Those are the main two. And, I just feel really heavy when I run. Based on these stats, what do I need to do to solve these problems? And I will tell you right now, it laid everything out for me. So what it did was it performed what I call a gait analysis. Normally you would go to somebody for a gait analysis. You would talk to them. They would look through your stats. They would figure out, okay, what are you doing? They would probably watch you run, and then they would give you a gait analysis. Gait is basically your running form. So basically ChatGPT gave me a gait analysis, which, by the way, is amazing that it has the capabilities of doing that. And then you're going to say, how can you trust it? Well, to be honest with you, AI can search a whole lot faster than I can. And I'd probably be able to find all this information, but now, ChatGPT also provides sources to where it's getting this info from, so it's just not getting it from anywhere. It's an amazing piece of technology. So like I said, it searches faster than I do. So basically it looked at everything, it analyzed everything, analyzed the video frame by frame, frame by frame. And it laid it all out. It said, I was overstriding, which means my legs were spreading too far apart, which means my cadence was off. My cadence, again, was steps per minute. It was too short, so I think I was averaging maybe like 120, and most of the time you want to average about 180. And so that was way off, which is what prompted me to set that playlist. It just laid it all out. It gave me everything that I needed to do. And it also tailored it to what I was already doing. So I did tell it, hey, I'm strength training these days, and this is what I'm doing. This is what my workout routine looks like. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on areas that I'm going to start working on the stabilizer muscles more. So hip flexors, shin raises, calf raises, hamstrings, things like that. So during my supersets on my strength training days, I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on my stabilizers and working on those micro muscles that are going to help me later in the future correct that form and work on my balance, do some box jumps and things like that, do some jumping jacks to work on being bouncy, because that was one of the things it said I was bad at. Was, I was really heavy on my feet, and I needed to learn to be lighter, learn to be bouncier. So I mean, it did everything. It laid everything out for me, and I'll just tell you this: if you're afraid of AI, just know this: if they want you, they've pretty much already got you. So there's no reason that you need to be afraid of that. There really isn't. Think of chat as an instant Google. It does what we do. I mean, it looks at it searches through all these little sites. It Googles all these little sites, goes on a rabbit trail. It just does it way faster. So I highly encourage you, take advantage of this. Get on ChatGPT, get as many stats as you can gather, tell it, give me a gait analysis, and just go from there. I mean, it provided me enough evidence, or enough information, that I was actually able to achieve those milestones. And I don't think I would have been able to really focus on correcting my form the way I did had I not done that. And just for reference, I did perform this gait analysis before that Wednesday, February 12th, that I did the 6-mile run. So, and then guess what I did is I used ChatGPT after my run to ask it, hey, how do I recover from this run? I just ran 6 miles, which is more than I've ran in months. What do I need to do? And, it gave me the, hydrate. Definitely need to hydrate. Get you some protein in, get you some carbs in, some fats, some energy. Focus on refueling yourself, because you just exerted all that energy. You exerted all that fuel. You burned it all up. Now you got to replenish. So, I mean, it was amazing. It was an amazing tool, and it was an amazing resource. And that was one of the big things that is going to continue to help me in the future of this journey. Because I'm going to continue to have it dial in what I need to work on. I'm going to continue to send it information and say, hey, let's work to, keep correcting this. So use it. Use ChatGPT. I promise you, it's going to help you. It gave me a starting point, and it gave me everything I needed to really push myself. Or at least have the confidence that I know enough about what I'm talking about to be able to create something to push myself, create a system in place that pushed me further. Speaking of pushing myself, I would say that another thing that really helped was, in the beginning I talked about self-hate. Well, this time I really focused on that. So in the beginning I really talked about self-hate. This time I really took that serious. And I basically said, when I start to think about something negative, I'm going to force myself to silence that, basically take that thought captive, and then give myself a reason to keep going. After every single mile that I did on that 6-mile run, I said, okay, so like the first 2 miles, I think I was going maybe like a 3:15 or something slow on the treadmill. And I said, you know what? I'm doing really good right now. And this is the 2nd mile. I said, I'm really doing good right now. I bet you anything I could go faster. And I just bumped it up by 10, by 0.10. So instead of 3:15, I did 3:25. And I ran a mile at that speed. And I accomplished that. And I said, man, that was amazing. Good job, Ethan. I bet you can go another mile. And I bet you can bump it up again. And you know what? I did. And I succeeded. And I bumped it up again. And I made it through that mile. Now, after I think like the 4th or 5th mile, it did kind of start hurting a little bit. But compared to, only doing 1 mile, and after, just like 5 minutes in that 1 mile, I was just miserable. This was a game changer for me. Was just constantly pushing myself and saying, you know what, you can do another mile. You can do another mile. You can go faster. And right at the end, at that 6th mile, I was doing my 5th mile, running my 5th mile. I think I was now pretty high up there, almost close to 4. And I said, and at this point I was more doing a brisk walk. So I wasn't really running, the whole time, but I guess if you want to consider it, I consider it a run. So I said, my form is impeccable today. I'm doing a really good job. This is the 5th mile. I've got I think I had 10 minutes left in the day. I said, I bet you anything, why don't you practice this actually running? So, like I said, I was walking. Why don't you try to actually run this thing with the form, technique, and skills that you have been forcing yourself to do this whole time? And I said, I bet you I can do that. And at that 6th mile, I bumped it up to 4:15, which is a run at this point. And I pushed and I was running. And I ran that mile and I ran that mile and I said, you're almost there. You're almost there. It's just 1 mile. It's just 1 mile. You got this. You can do this. You're almost there. Your form is great. Focus on your form. Focus on your form. Don't think about how much it hurts. Just think about getting to the end. Think about getting to the end of that mile. You got it. You got it. Just repeating that in my head the whole time. And before I even knew it, the mile was up. And I was done running. And I felt amazing. I mean, words cannot describe how good it felt to finish that. 6 miles. And it was just something, it was a whole different feeling than what I felt the week before. Took everything in me not to just break down right there. I mean, it was just wow. I mean, I spent last week tearing myself apart, and this week I bust 4 milestones. I can do this. I really seriously, I can do this. And it completely flipped everything for me. After that, I mean, it was just man, there's nothing that can stop me now. Now I know I can hit 6 miles. I know I can. I've done it. So I have no excuses now. So, and I made a post that day talking about my achievement and how absolutely proud of myself I was. And if you follow me, I would suggest go look at that, and just, that was my headspace then. Look at my headspace on February 5th and then look at my headspace on February 12th. It was just 2 completely different people. That just goes to show you that sometimes just believing in yourself is all you need. Sometimes that's all you need to make it. You got this. And it was just amazing. It really was amazing. On top of that, though, I did also listen to my body, and, I honestly probably could have gone 6 more miles. I felt amazing. I felt great. I was like, man, I'm not even hurting. I'm not even exhausted. I bet I could do more. But I said, you know what? It's been 6 miles. This is more than I ever pushed. I think today, just for today, this is enough. I did a really amazing good job. So let's cap it there. And I did. I listened to my body, and I decided to just go ahead and cap it there. And I'm glad I did, because as soon as I started driving home, the hunger started rolling in, the exhaustion started rolling in. I started getting groggy and tired, and it just, man, I just, like that, I just, drained. So, although you can push yourself, also know how far you can push yourself before you need to stop. Just listen to your gut. When you feel like it's time to stop, stop. I mean, unless you really can do it. And then sometimes that's why it helps to have a gym partner there, to motivate you. Because sometimes, if you have a good gym partner, they know when you're able to push and when you're not. They know when you can go a little harder and when you can't. Me and my stepdad work out all the time. We're doing strength training, and, sometimes I'm really struggling to push that last rep in, and he says, oh, I bet you can go 1 more. I bet you can do another one. And then I do, and I shock myself because I didn't think I was capable. But he also doesn't say, I bet you could do 10 more, because he knows I probably can't, right? And then sometimes when he's pushing, I'm standing behind him watching him, work, and I tell him, I think you've got 2 more in you. I really think you've got 2 more in you. You got it. You could do 2 more, and then he does. And of course I'm there to make sure that he doesn't drop a weight on his head. But, if you don't have somebody there, sometimes you got to do that to yourself. I can go like I did on that Wednesday. I can go another mile. I can go faster. I can push harder. I know I can. And then do it. Don't chicken out. Just do it. It makes the world of a difference. Now, all that's great, but what happened that last week? I skipped the whole freaking week. What happened? And I chalk it up to two things, mostly. First thing is it was freezing cold. I mean, it dropped down to, I think the lowest it got was like 6 degrees here in Texas, which for here in Texas, that's cold. Wind was like 20 miles an hour, and the wind chill was like -10. So it was bitter, it was brutal, it was cold. And I wasn't going to be able to go out on the track that day anyway, because the track is outside. And I don't know. I mean, just a part of me in there was just like, why don't I just rest? I just kind of feel like resting this week. So I think I made like 2 videos that week, and the first video was like, I'm skipping today. I didn't realize that. Well, that day the gym was actually closed, and I didn't realize it, which was funny. So couldn't go anyway. And then, not going that one day pretty much kicked off the rest of the week, and I couldn't find the motivation to just go. I really couldn't. I was exhausted. It's a long week, and I just didn't feel like going. I was just being lazy. Really, honestly, that's what it was. I was being lazy. And I think I said that in that video I did at the end of the week. I just said, honestly, there's nobody to blame but myself for this. I'm really just being a lazy bum. It's cold, and I just don't feel like it. Now, that is where I noticed that the whole point of pushing myself is to build that discipline. And that week I didn't have any. I didn't have any discipline to say, despite how you feel, despite how cold it is, get your butt out there and do it, dadgummit. I mean, the weather dropped, the motivation dropped, and I just didn't do it. The discipline wasn't strong enough to motivate me, or the discipline wasn't strong enough to push me to say, despite how I feel, I'm going to do this anyway. So what that kind of showed me was I really need to work on building that discipline up. Constantly proving to myself that even though you don't feel like it, you need to do it anyway, kind of thing. Sometimes your body tells you one thing and your mind tells you another. When that happens, listen to your gut, because your gut is usually always right. If you really do think that you're able to go, even just a little bit, then do it. Do it anyway. And I should have. I honestly should have. I had plenty of opportunity Tuesday and Thursday to get out there and do something, and I just didn't. So if I really want to beat this race, if I really want to win, I'm going to have to start taking this a little bit more seriously and focus on building my discipline, building that do it anyway mentality. Because I'm going to need that, especially if I'm sitting there running second mile in and I'm just in so much pain, I can't even breathe, whatever. I've got to at that point I have 2 options. I can either say, you know what, my body's given up, I quit and not finish, or I can say, despite how I feel, I need to finish. What did I say at the beginning of this whole series? I said that my goal isn't to win this race, it's to finish this race. And discipline's going to come a long way when it comes to finishing this race, pushing beyond what I know I'm capable of, or what I think I'm capable of. If you really want something bad enough, then no excuse in the world is going to be strong enough to keep you from it. That is why some people succeed and others don't. You have to want it. You have to want it more than anything else in your life, in the world. You have to want it deep in your core. If you do, then like I said, nothing's going to get in the way of that. You will find a way. I promise you, you will find a way. You will push yourself. And I guarantee you that my failure to push that week is really going to affect my mock 5K. Again, at the time of recording this, I'm not running it yet. It will be next week when I run it. But when I release these, that will already be out and open. So you will know how well I do, but I don't yet. So I guarantee you, it's gonna make a difference in my 5K. I may not succeed this mock 5K, or achieve the goals that I want to achieve, or the time that I want to achieve on this mock 5K, because I did not discipline myself enough to push. So discipline really goes a long way, is the point that I'm trying to make. Learn to build that. Learn to strengthen your will. And I heard on a podcast that there's a part of your brain called the Anterior Midcingulate Cortex. And it's a part of your brain that says, basically, when it's your will, is the best way to explain it. The more and more that you do things that you hate doing, you have to not like it and do it anyway for this to work. The more and more that you do things that you do not like doing, the bigger that part of your brain gets, and the easier and easier and easier it becomes to ignore the I don't want to mentality and do it anyway. The stronger and stronger your will gets. The bigger that gets, the stronger your will is. And these people that push despite anything else, they have built their discipline up to the point where nothing stops them. It's consistency. It's consistently doing what you don't want to do, despite how you feel. It's doing that over and over and over and over and over again that builds that will, that builds that discipline. That is what needs to happen. A good book to understand your mind and understand, kind of what goes on up in here is Craig Groeschel's Winning the War in Your Mind. I highly suggest you read that book. That is a great, great, great book. It talks about strongholds, and it talks about, taking your thoughts captive, and a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, he goes into a lot more in depth. And if you really want to change, if you really want your mentality to be better and stronger, then read that book. I promise you it will make a difference. So March, what are we looking at for March? There's a new month, new opportunities, another mock 5K coming up, and it's this one I'm going to aim for a shorter time. So what do I need to focus on? First and foremost is I'm going to continue to improve my form. So, a good form is going to not only prevent your injuries, but it's also going to get the more and more you do it right, the more your body acclimates to good form. So it becomes more natural for you to have good form. So, and that only happens through consistency, through repetition, through, constantly doing it right over and over and over and over and over again. It's building that muscle memory. So that is my goal. For March is to just keep nailing that form down, keep doing what I can outside of just running to, build up the muscles that I need to build up to run better. It's all about running better, running more efficiently. I'm also going to continue to really focus on having a positive mindset. Pushing myself and building up my confidence rather than continuing to tear myself down. It's very important for me that I just stay positive the whole time, because as soon as I start getting negative, it is going to be an overwhelming wave of unresistible just failure. And I don't want to repeat that second week. I really don't. I want to succeed this month. I want to achieve the things that I want to achieve this month. I want this month to be a milestone buster. I do. Every week I want to bust a milestone. That's my goal. Not just marches, but maybe, beat some phase 2 milestones too. This next month is my month to prove to myself that I've got this, prove to myself that I'm capable. I'm also going to really focus on, like I said earlier, building that discipline and not listening to the lazy part of me that says, I don't feel like it. Nobody ever feels like it. If everybody that went to the gym felt like it, it'd be a whole different kind of environment, I promise. Nobody feels like it. Nobody does. But you got to do it anyway. I have to do it anyway. Because if I don't, my dreams of winning that 5K race are out the window. My dreams of even completing that 5K race are out the window. There's no possible way I'm going to be able to do it. It's just not going to happen. So, thank you so much for joining today's update. I know it was kind of a fire hose worth of stuff, but it was a really good month. February, it was, highs and lows, but every month is going to have its highs and lows. I'm guarantee you March will too. But I'm excited to do this, and it's good to reflect in these updates, not just for me, but also for other people to see what all goes on in a real world situation. Somebody really training for this, what's going on, what's happening. And I'm going to continue to put these out every month, once a month until the race. So just stay tuned, and hopefully we get better. Hopefully things get stronger. Really all I've got to say. I will be starting a new series also. At the time of recording this, it will air next week. So keep an eye out for that. It is going to be called Beyond the Gear. So basically what I'm going to do is there's a lot of stuff that I'm using, not just for, not just for this race, not just for this training period. Yes, for that, but also, just some stuff, some resources and, some articles, some books, some podcast episodes, some equipment that I really just found highly beneficial, and I want to talk about it. So how I'm using it, and then also how it can benefit you. So that's going to be called Beyond the Gear, and so stay tuned for that. I really am excited to launch that, and we'll see what comes of it. And aside from that, just stay motivated, stay encouraged, and chase every mile. Chase every mile. Because honestly, some are going to break you, some are going to be great, but they're all going to teach you something. So chase every mile. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for listening. Remember, in the pursuit of your dreams, hesitation is the enemy. Slam your foot on the gas and go full speed towards your vision. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep striving, stay inspired and motivated, and never stop chasing greatness.